Welcome to Heart of Home, where we explore the deepest emotions hidden within the simple, everyday moments of our family lives. There is a specific memory from my childhood that remains vivid, centered around the steam rising from a fresh pot of rice. Dinner time was always a ritual of unity, yet there was always one person missing from the table until the very end. My mother never sat down when the food was hot. She was always busy hovering around the stove, serving or cleaning up. As a child, I often wondered why she stood there watching us eat, while her own plate remained empty on the counter. She would constantly refill our bowls, ensuring we had the choicest cuts of meat and the freshest vegetables from the pan. Only when my father and I had finished eating and left the table would she finally pick up her own bowl. By the time she sat down, the laughter had faded, and the vibrant steam from the food had long since vanished. The rice in her bowl was no longer fluffy and hot. It was cold, slightly hard, and had lost its inviting aroma. I remember approaching her one evening, tugging at her sleeve, and asking the question that had been on my mind for days. I asked her innocently, "Mom, why do you always wait? Don't you want to eat when the food is hot and delicious?" She simply patted my head, her smile radiating a warmth that felt far more comforting than any hot meal could ever be. She looked me in the eyes and lied effortlessly. "I actually prefer eating cold rice. It tastes much better to me." I was too young to question her, so I accepted her answer as the absolute truth and ran off to play. Years flew by, seasons changed outside our kitchen window, and I grew from a curious child into a busy, self-absorbed teenager. Despite the passage of time, the routine at our dinner table remained exactly the same, with Mom always eating last and alone. I became distracted by my own world, scrolling through my phone, barely noticing the silent figure moving around the kitchen periphery. She continued to place the best portions in my bowl, and I continued to accept them, as if it was my right. I never stopped to think about why she still preferred cold rice, or why she never joined us during the lively conversations. One rainy night while I was studying late, she came into my room quietly holding a steaming bowl of chicken soup. I devoured the soup, grateful for the warmth, while she sat there watching me with that same gentle, self-sacrificing smile. I briefly asked if she wanted some, but she shook her head, insisting she wasn't hungry and that I needed the energy. The day I got accepted into university, we threw a small celebration with a table overflowing with all my favorite dishes. Mom spent the entire day in the kitchen cooking up a storm to ensure everyone else could celebrate my big achievement. I was too busy taking photos and laughing with friends to notice that she hadn't taken a single bite of the feast. When the guests left and the laughter died down, all that remained were piles of dirty dishes and scraps of cold food. Once again, she sat amidst the clutter, quietly finishing the leftovers, tired but content that her daughter had a happy day. Then came the day I packed my bags to leave home, chasing my own dreams far away from that warm, familiar kitchen. She pressed a box of homemade food into my hands for the journey, her final act of care before I stepped away. University life was chaotic. I survived on instant noodles and cold sandwiches, often missing the taste of a proper home-cooked meal. My calls home became less frequent, filled with hurried updates about my life, rarely asking how she was actually doing. Back home, the kitchen must have felt incredibly large and silent, with no one there to eat the hot meals she cooked. She still cooked my favorite dishes, sometimes freezing them just in case I decided to surprise her with a sudden visit. I graduated, found a job, fell in love, and started a life of my own, the memories of home fading slightly. On my wedding day, she held me tighter than ever, whispering that I must take care of my new family and myself. I tried to replicate her recipes in my new kitchen, but the food often burned or lacked that special comforting flavor. When I became pregnant, the morning sickness was terrible, and all I craved was the simple taste of my mother's rice. She traveled miles to stay with me, taking over my kitchen to ensure I ate well just like she always had. Then my baby was born, and my world turned upside down. Silence was replaced by crying, and order was replaced by chaos. I found myself balancing a crying infant on one hip while trying to prepare dinner for my husband coming home from work. When my husband arrived, I served him immediately, urging him to eat while I stepped away to soothe the fussy baby. I paced the living room floor, rocking my child, watching my husband enjoy the hot meal I had struggled to prepare. By the time the baby finally fell asleep, and I returned to the table, my husband had finished and gone to rest. I looked down at the table. The soup had developed a film on top, and the rice was cold and clumpy. Exhaustion weighed on my shoulders as I sat in the dim light picking up my chopsticks to eat the cold leftovers. The texture of the cold rice hit my tongue, and suddenly a wave of realization crashed over me, unlocking a buried memory. I saw my mother's face again, sitting at our old table, eating the same cold rice that I was eating now. The truth hit me harder than anything I had ever felt. Nobody actually prefers eating cold, hard rice over a hot meal. Tears began to stream down my face, mixing with the realization that her preference was a lie born of pure love. She didn't like it cold. She just wanted to make sure that we were full, warm, and happy before she cared for herself. Her words, "I like it cold," echoed in my mind, revealing themselves as the most beautiful, selfless lie I had ever heard. I reached for my phone with trembling hands, dialing her number, desperate to hear her voice across the distance right now. She answered on the second ring, her voice thick with sleep, but instantly filled with worry, asking if I was okay. I choked back a sob and whispered, "Mom, I'm so sorry. I finally understand why you always ate the cold rice." She laughed that familiar, gentle laugh and said, "Silly girl, why are you crying about that? Have you eaten dinner yet?" Even then, her first instinct was to ask if I had eaten, disregarding her own sacrifice as if it were nothing. The very next morning, I packed the car and drove straight to my childhood home, needing to see her in person. When I pulled up to the gate, she was sweeping the yard. Her face lit up with pure joy seeing us arrive. That evening, the kitchen came alive again, with Mom rushing around to prepare a feast for her daughter and grandchild. As we sat down, she instinctively started to turn away toward the sink, ready to wait until we had finished eating. I caught her hand gently, but firmly, pulling her toward the chair next to me, refusing to let history repeat itself. I filled her bowl with steaming hot rice and placed the tenderest meat on top, just as she had done for me. She looked at the hot food, then up at me, her eyes shimmering with tears, realizing that her little girl finally understood. We ate together that night, and for the first time in years, I watched my mother enjoy a meal while it was hot. I realized that the cycle of motherhood is a circle of sacrifice, but it is also a circle of immense gratitude. Parents often hide their sacrifices behind simple lies and smiles, shielding us from the hardships they endure for our happiness. We often take these silent acts of love for granted, consuming their sacrifice without stopping to say a simple thank you. Don't wait until you walk in their shoes to understand the depth of their love. Cherish them while they are here. Pay attention to the small details: the cold rice, the worn-out clothes, the tired eyes that still manage to smile. Every hot meal we enjoy is often paid for by the cold meal someone else ate in silence and solitude. A mother's love is not always loud or demanding. It is quiet, steady, and enduring, like the embers of a fire. I made a silent vow that day to never let her eat alone again, to return the care she gave me. As the sun set over our home, a new sense of peace settled in, born from understanding and shared gratitude. The true magic of life isn't found in grand gestures, but in these quiet, ordinary moments of connection and love. If you can go home, sit at the table, eat with your parents, let them know that you see their love. Do not let the food go cold. And more importantly, do not let the hearts of those who love you feel lonely. She will always be there waiting for us with a warm meal and an open heart, no matter how far we roam. The lesson of the cold rice is one I will carry forever, passing it down as a story of love to my child. I finally understand that happiness is not what you put in your own mouth, but seeing your loved ones nourished and full. Time is relentless. It takes away their youth and energy, pouring it all into us so that we may grow strong. Cherish every second, every meal, and every conversation, for we never know how much time we have left to share. Love is the only true inheritance, the most precious legacy that is passed down through the recipes and rituals of home. In this vast and often cold world, our home remains a sanctuary of warmth, fueled by the sacrifices of our parents. The kitchen light remains on a beacon of hope and a silent promise that someone is always there caring for us. I hugged her tighter than I ever had before, letting the silence speak the thousand words of gratitude in my heart. She patted my back with that familiar rhythm, and for a moment, I was a child again, safe in her arms. 2 hot bowls of rice now sit on the table, a symbol of a barrier broken and a love fully understood. Thank you, Mom, for the cold rice, for the silent sacrifices, and for loving us more than you loved yourself. May we all learn to see the love hidden in the shadows before the lights go out. Love your parents deeply. Thank you for watching this story on Heart of Home. Please subscribe and share this video to honor parents everywhere.